All right, we're going to jump right into it. And like I mentioned, to start things off, it's going to come from Tokenizer. And basically, here it is. And this is good stuff. You want to, I guess you could say, get the one-liners, right? Tokenizer's right on this one. Mike Cornwell and I guess, saw this right around the same time. So, I retweeted, he retweeted at the same time. Tokenizer, in my opinion, is the GOAT when it comes to all of the utility-based cryptos that, let's face it, that we cover, and some other ones we don't even cover, but we need to probably in the future. But I mean, as far as not just being focused on one, he is focused on like maybe 25 or something like that, right? So he takes the cake, in my opinion, when it comes to that. You need to give him a follow if you haven't done so already. We've had him on the show. Looking forward to have him on the show in the future. But let's talk about this. So yes, don't look at partnerships so much as price pump factors. The whole saying of buy the rumors, sell the news. Now, there is certain circumstances that we know where, big things could happen, and they're not necessarily partnerships, but like, you will see pumps. Obviously, we're going to talk about XDC tonight, right after this segment. And basically, it's like, electronics trade documents act, I almost said bill, act, going into effect on the 20th is a big deal. So there's circumstances like that. But, whether it's Jasmy, whether it's Qnt, whether it's some of these other ones, people have stated, big, giant partnerships, the price is not pumping. What is the best example from this list that we're going to get into? Qnt, right? Bank of England, Bank of International Settlements, literally saying we choose Qnt's over Ledger. Like, for a person just came into crypto and maybe kind of know about some of this stuff, they would think, wow, that's big, man. The price is going to pump. Price didn't pump. Why is it that the price didn't pump? I've been saying this for the longest time. Maybe you guys get tired of me saying this. It's not utility in motion. And that's the whole point of, being an investor and recognize the difference between utility-driven cryptocurrencies compared to like meme tokens and so on, right? This is where you graduate from being a wet behind the ears meme token investor. No offense, right? I've been guilty of it too. So, we're not preaching to the choir here, but graduating from that to utility-based projects, because, when we look at all of these on this list, we say utility, utility, utility. Awesome. Okay. Do you understand that utility? Well, of course they do, Max. I mean, come on, man. I understand XRP is going to have cross-border payments and it's going to settle in 3 to 5 seconds. And they got all these partnerships all over the world. Right. All these partnerships all over the world. Yes. Even Stellar. Remember the other day, some people were feeling though like it was a nothing burger. They were hoping if it was an Apple partnership. But even if it was an Apple partnership, yeah, Apple's popular enough to see a little bit of a price. But are you going to see that thing go parabolic? No. And when some people say, well, what are you doing, fudding all this? I'm not fudding all this, but I'm trying to help you. Some of you guys already know this, so I'm not preaching to the choir. I'm trying to help, especially the newcomers, understand when we talk about utility, it means just that. Anything that's utility, right? I mean, when I think of utility, even from a kid's perspective, right? A child's perspective, I'm literally thinking of, a kid's nowadays going to look at an icon. What icon are they going to look at? They're going to look at a gear. And the gear is like, that's in motion, right? Partnerships is not utility in motion. And if anything, I'm going to just go down to this bottom part where I say what I just mentioned to you, And Tokenizer responded and he said, yeah, absolutely. Partnerships are like the secret sauce that lets all the flavors come out. That is a great analogy. You know what I mean? We're always talking about burgers for some reason, nothing burgers and stuff like that. So I will play his I think he has a little video, but the focus is on this. So here's the one-liners of understanding some of this stuff. Let's look at the factors like Tokenizer was talking about of adoption and survivability for your distributed ledger technology. Number one, Qnt added government, GovUK/AU cloud government demand for any and any ratio, right? XRP in MasterCard CBDC program, one of 7 fintechs chosen. Now we understand there's other one-liners, and Tokenizer does a good job of giving you consistent one-liners, and I love how he does this, right? Casper, sometimes you guys may feel as though we don't talk about Casper. Now, want to know something? Just because we don't talk about it, no, we're not dismissing Casper. There's no way I'm dismissing Casper. And if anything, that's another one that's part of our list. I feel as though I have to stack more. How about this one? Chengdu public chain selected as an option by BSN China. Were you aware of that? Render. I did that intro. Octane App Store opens door to Apple Vision Pro. You talk about Apple. Well, again, guys, sometimes some people feel as though partnerships are exclusive to one company. That could be furthermore from the truth. Perfect example is kind of like what Mr. Dingy sent me, Mr. Daniel, and he basically sent me the info. He's like, well, kind of sound down the dumps, my friend. All right. Sony chose A-Star. Oh, come on. Really? Like I said to him, and again, if some of you guys miss some of the shows and some of the recorded content, it's okay, right? I'm not holding against it. We all have lives. We get busy. But even with that, I mentioned to him, I was like, okay, so what? Keep in mind, A-Star is a different use case. They don't use Hyperledger, right? What about Sorimitsu? They use Hyperledger. And their ISO TC307, the quant network standard. You guys remember that deep dive, right? Who's also Hyperledger, right? Jasmy, who's also Hyperledger, right? Casper. Now, Casper is, of course, not selected by Sony, right? But Sorimitsu, Sony, Jasmy, Sony. It's just different types of partnerships, but doesn't mean that these big players only pick one. All right, Morpheus Network, real quick. I want you guys to listen to this because, even before the show, Mike Corwell and I were talking about this just for a brief moment. What about September 20th? Electronics Trade Documents Act. I think it's a given. XDC should do something. I'm betting on 3 for 3. But is there something with VeChain? Is there something with Morpheus Network? And then I even told him, I was like, man, maybe I should just finally get some VeChain. Why? Say what you want. How will you learn anything from all this material for the last almost 2 years now? Consolidation. Now, some people say, yeah, but they were in consolidation, trading sideways in the last bull market. True. But did they have the partnerships and utility, or the utility and the partnerships to complement it at the time? They had a few, but, I've been paying attention. I don't talk about VeChain all the time, but I have recognized it. And I think if we apply the rules of what we've mentioned in regards to Zinfin, XDC, maybe we should apply those rules to something like VeChain. I'm not saying for you guys to all go out there and buy a bunch of VeChain. Some of you guys already have. None of this is ever financial advice. You got to do what you got to do best for you and your family. But I do recognize some things like that because you want to know something? Maybe at the time of September 20th, it's not just XDC. It's going to be some of these other ones. Right? VeChain, Morpheus Network. But anyway, Morpheus Network. Next trade SDGs accelerate UNM leader framework. We've talked about that many times. All right, back to XDC. ITFA org member, only public layer 1 in ITFA initiatives. And that's big. And if anything, maybe tomorrow, well, tomorrow's Friday. We won't be here tomorrow. We'll be on the Twitter space, okay? But maybe at the Twitter space, we talk about this. Or maybe we just wait for Monday for some of this. But, it's going to be a collection of all sorts of different things, right? That I'm going to share, some other people are going to share, and so on. So if you got some great info, bring it, right? That's the bottom line. But yeah, those initiatives, right? Let's talk about that maybe another day. But again, let's do the one-liners. Stellar, IBM in Africa. Integrations accelerate Stellar payment adoption. We talked about that. We don't cover energy web token all the time, but I respect the tokenizer. It is his number 2. So Deutsche Telekom joins validator, big telecom giants backing EWC. Nexera, were you aware that ToroNet US aid campaign funders for real economic funding use? Chainlink, some of you guys are for it, some of you guys are against it, but were you aware Google Ads integration brings new paradigm of data analytics? We're always talking about data all the time. But of course, Swift, yeah, has a legitimate partnership with Chainlink. And, there's other cryptocurrencies out there where it's like, yeah, well, they're secretly with some of these guys like Qnt, XRP, stuff like that. I mean, that XRP thing is always going to be mentioned, right? Bottom line. So to have something like Chainlink with Swift, that's big. Now, here's the thing. Some people in the past have stated, and this is a great example of, is this utility in motion? In the past, people have mentioned, if Swift, you could just come out and just officially state that they've chosen XRP, the price would just go parabolic. All right. Let's not forget that. What about Chainlink? That's official. That's in the, anybody can read up on that. Did that go parabolic? No. If anything, we'll highlight Chainlink is under $7. That's a buy. You know what I mean? And there's so many other examples of what I'm talking about tonight in a bear market where partnerships are not utility in motion, but they definitely complement things. I mean, that analogy that Tokenizer had, that's a great analogy. He always talks about A0. Again, I did a little brief intro. I got to research A0 more because, I mean, some of you guys have pointed out A0. I know not a lot of you guys have A0, but some of you do. There must be something there with A0. So I'll be honest, I have not. I just kind of, gave you the intro. I really need to take more of a deep dive into it. But anyway, DAG is solid. U.S., I mean, that stands out, right? Department of Defense contract, top military vetted cybersecurity. Let's just read a few more. There's only like 3 or 4 more. Algo. We always talk about Algorand, right? Bank of Italy's public chain demand for utility, even mid SEC. IOTA doesn't get enough press, but is solid, right? EU PCP program. EU as in European Union backing utility for what commercial use? It says it plain as day. That right there would be utility in motion once that commercial use comes into effect. You got to keep in mind, things still have to come into effect. But why do I put so much emphasis on Electronic Trades Documents Act? Because that act goes into effect on the 20th, and it changes everything. And we have a great outline for you guys tonight on why that is so important. Good. Smash that like if you appreciate the content. Look at this. Hbar drop listed onto FedNow. I mean, we did the whole thing about Stellar. We did the whole thing about XRP. And it wasn't necessarily those specifically, but it was, the partners that would be utilizing XRP if that ended up being the case. But what really stood out, again, sometimes it's just we get that tunnel vision. We think, oh my gosh, how this is tied into, the big new money system. We get that tunnel vision. I'm guilty of it myself, right? I'm not perfect. I'm still learning. Right? I'm gonna be learning to the day I drop dead, right? There's no person in this world that stops learning, even if you got the biggest IQ, in the history of mankind, like you're an Einstein or something. Yes, drop listen to the FedNow proof of flexibility in Hbar ecosystem. Filecoin, you guys know how I feel about Filecoin. It was great until SEC came after it. Lockheed Martin, another again defense contract, right? My buddy. Ryan Reed, he used to work for Lockheed Martin. So yeah, Lockheed Martin for space storage. Space storage, how much is that going to be worth? Continued use of Filecoin for critical data. Now I want to also just pause here for a second. All right. And I know this seems like, I thought this was going to be a short outline. This is good stuff. Because again, I watch other shows and I have nothing against Wendy O. I like Wendy O. You know what I mean? I don't agree with everything she says and so on. But, she pointed out, just like Brad Garlinghouse pointed out, 99% of all crypto will eventually, will go to zero. It will only be invested in the ones that are like solid, right? Some people say it's the blue chips. Well, my thing is this. She stated that, are we oblivious to think that everything we're invested into, is just going to go parabolic, right? It's going to pump. Well, yes and no. If your portfolio is focused on, just memes and not the utility, then I would say, yeah, you're probably going to get kind of wrecked on that. But, all these ones that are mentioned here, I want people to have the attitude that it's not that, we invest in all these in the hope that, or to believe that all of them are going to go parabolic at once. I think a lot of these could very well do well in a bull market. And maybe you guys feel like, well, I already know that. But the thing is, some people don't. It's like buying a certain type of ticket in which you're just waiting for that ticket to be called, right? It's numbered to be called, right? Filecoin, the Lockheed Martin thing. Filecoin will eventually go, to my opinion, new all-time highs. So previous all-time highs and then new all-time highs. Hbar is a great example. All these are great examples, but they will not all pump all at the same time. There's people say, no, you're wrong. That's not... utility in motion is not set to a specific date. That should be your key takeaway, right? We, of course, will focus on, late November 2025, right, with ISO 222 being fully implemented. That's a different story. But he has a great statement here. And, and actually, before I get that, Trias, I have to research it more. Chopin, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. Security tools, security used in the world's largest ERP system. I don't know what the ERP system is, but I know some of you guys say, Max, if you're big on QNT, you should look into Trias. People keep saying that. I don't know why that is. I got to find out why that is. All right, last. These aren't what is directly pumping in price, right? But it's what we'll keep our eye on, basically. And in the long run, those are the factors that will drive growth within any DLT ecosystem. But it all begins, with demand for its utility. Yes, the utility. You know what I mean? It's just like the timing of these things and so on, right? You have to understand that just because you don't see your specific coin that you love, and we all have our own favorites, pump, there's reasons for it not pumping. You know what I mean? You got to see utility in motion, and that should be your key takeaway. All right, glad to share that nice little graphic from Mr. Tokenizer. Again, give him a follow over at Crypto Twitter or Crypto X. He'll be followed over at Tokenizer, and he's killing it. He's almost at 30,000 followers. Awesome.